Hey, welcome, fellow maker. This is Prop Live Q&A, your weekly prop and costume making question and answer session. I'm Bill, joined today by guest Mike, aka Rocketman Props, a regular in the chat, a Canadian, and someone else who is from the Pacific Northwest. How you doing, buddy?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Technically, I'm from Toronto or close, but living Pacific Northwest.
I am also from that area, on Lake Ontario, even.
The cold.
Yes. In fact, it's super warm here today. I don't know about you up in Vancouver, but it's nice today.
Really warm today, and then tomorrow it's going to be like 13. So.
Brittany found before we got started, we were checking out the TwitchCon costume contest, and she found a link to the finalists on woobox.com. Of course, that makes sense. I mentioned that because some of our prop tarts are in the finals, and I just... Oops. There we go. Fixed my thing. There's Little Sparks, there's Modulus Props, Bjorn Workshop, Shepherd of Men, Egg Sisters, Hendo, Miss Kit Quinn, SKS Props. We have a ton of our awesome friends and prop tarts in the TwitchCon costume contest, which is wicked fun. Cool. Thanks for finding that, Britt. On with the show. Rocketman Props. You don't make rockets. You make props and gems and all sorts of cool stuff. Want to tell us a little bit?
But on an aside, real quick, I do have a plan of making my logo in a 3D print. I have to do something with it.
Dude, you could make it like a model rocket and then shoot it into the air.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I had an idea because I like having display stuff if I go to like Maker Faire. I was thinking of having 3D print it like yay big, and then finish one half of it like plated metal and paint it all real nice, but then have the other half just open 3D print and put all the stuff in it so you can spin it around and be like, look, this is the inside of
cool.
Or what Beacon has.
I like that. That's a fun idea. And then make another one that we can shoot into the sky.
Yeah. It's a little bit, it's not exactly an aeronautical design though. It's super dumpy. It only has like wings, so it would probably go
and that would be fine. That would be just as much fun.
Pack it full of gunpowder, just blow it up. Anyway.
Yeah, I did model rockets as a kid, and I had more than one meet that kind of fate.
Yeah.
You do some really crazy cool stuff. I got your Etsy store open here if you guys are looking for gems, especially, and a bunch of other cool stuff. You want to go over some of the stuff you got over here, Mike? Some stuff you're proud of?
Lately, I've been doing a lot of laser cut stuff. Specifically, a lot of Overwatch designs. But since I finished up all the characters that I could, of that, I've moved on to doing some stuff for Magic the Gathering. I've got some Supernatural stuff up there. Just kind of trying to go through the fandoms and
see that, yeah. A lot of laser cut wood stuff. Yeah. I see a little tiny Torbjorn armor pack, which I have one right here. Ta-da! Super tiny and adorable. Is this a resin cast?
Yep, that one's cold cast.
Very nice.
It's 320, whatever the easiest stuff is.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
You and the first two that I got. First two finished ones I got.
Awesome. Well, that's fantastic. Those of you watching live, if you'd like to submit a question about prop and costume making in general, or if you have a specific question about casting resin, especially small gems and stuff, or laser cutting, or anything related to running an Etsy store, please submit any of those questions to punishprops.com/live. There's just a little form there you can fill out, send your question in, and we will get to answering them. So send those questions in now as you're watching live, and we will dive into those in just a few minutes. Before we get going on the rest of the questions, I'd like to point out a couple of housekeeping things. Not only can you submit your questions at our website anytime during the week, But also, if you want to join in on a super fun, cool discussion or share what you're working on, the best place to do that is on the Prop Tart page, which I don't have open. I'm opening it right now. There it is. So go to Facebook, look up the Prop Tarts of Punished Props. You'll see a wonderful group of amazing people. There's over 4,000 people in there, which is crazy how many people there are. People sharing their projects, looking for advice on things that they're building or working on. And then there's also the $20 Robot Go Prop Yourself Challenge, which is super fun. So if you want to challenge yourself and join in on a really fun community project, that's the place to go.
I'm terrified of doing any of those.
Yeah?
I don't have the time to like, I would want to do so much to it that I'm just like, nope, I'll abstain because I'm just terrified of it. It's such a short amount of time to do something that I would want to put a lot of effort into.
Right. That's the thing.
I'm really bad at, like, scratch builds.
Yeah.
It's good enough.
I like, I mean, there's a $20 challenge. That's the limit on how much you can spend. But it doesn't say how much time you can spend on it.
Exactly. I could spend forever.
Yeah. Here's an idea. Whoever is organizing the Prop Tart challenges, do one that has a time limit. You can spend as much money as you want, but it's a very limited time limit. You only have 1 day or 1 hour or something crazy like that. There's a fun idea.
That's a good gateway to get people to start filming stuff too.
Absolutely, for sure. Cool. I have a couple of things I've been working on. Maybe you guys will have some questions about that. The first one, I saw someone in the chat was asking about which faction I joined for Destiny, and I joined Dead Orbit because I thought they had the coolest looking armor. That's the main reason why. But I also started working on a new Destiny gun because that's how I roll. On Tuesday during the live stream, I started working on it. Well, I didn't stop. I kept working on it, and this is how much I have done of my Dead Man Walking auto pistol mod for an airsoft gun. So it's an airsoft gun with the shroud on top of it. I've 3D modeled and 3D printed all of this. And this part here actually slides as it shoots the way it ought to. This is all completely non-permanent, so things are screwed in. I can unscrew it and just get back down to the base gun here. But I've made a ton of progress on it. So if you guys have any questions about that in particular, let me know. Just punishprops.com/live. Submit your questions over there. I have some sanding and painting to do to get this all finished, but I'm pretty stoked about how it's turning out. Ta-da! So yeah, look for a full... I'm doing a video from the live stream, kind of describing my prototyping process, and then I'll have a full painting and finishing video on top of that. So look for a couple of videos coming out on that. One other thing I have, I checked my P.O. box today, and there were these connectors in there, and I think a fan sent these to me. Someone was talking to me about better or smaller connectors for some of the wiring I was doing for the Sweepy robot head, and someone sent me this, and thank you. I don't know who it came from, but thank you. So I will totally use those. You guys are great.
It's always weird when someone just finds your address and sends you something.
Oh, we have our P.O. box. It's
okay.
out there, yeah. It's not it did not come to my house. But it came from, they ordered it from Amazon. It came to my P.O. box. There was no note saying who it was from. So whomever sent that to me, thanks, you're awesome. I will totally use those. Cool. All right, well, questions coming in. Once again, if you're watching live, punishprops.com/live. You want to send us a question about prop making, about costume making, about Etsy, about casting gems, or casting, or using a laser cutter. All things that Mike here does a lot of. Send those questions in. First one comes to us from Jonathan. Curious if we do anything for Halloween. That's a good one. Do you celebrate Halloween in any special way?
I don't.
No?
I never was really one for Halloween, so I guess that kind of makes me biased. But like, people ask me occasionally, "Oh, you must do Halloween great." I'm like, the two cosplays that I've made are not Halloween costumes,
Mhm.
because the options for Halloween are wander around in the dark, trick or treating, hard to do when you're 28 years old, um, or go to a bar, and they are not bar costumes.
Right.
They're hardly con costumes. They're super bulky, super ridiculous. The bars that I like to go to are packed normally. I would not be able to do that while also dressed as Torbjorn. It would not work. So I don't tend to. Uh, I wore my dwarf to work one day for Halloween, and they had a giveaway, and they ended up giving away to somebody a iPad Air or something, some ridiculous, awesome prize that I would have sold online for however much money. And like the guy who got it was like casual Wolverine. He was casual Wolverine every day of his life. All he did was wear a wife beater and bring his claws to work that day, and he got it. And I'm like, but I look at the two pictures and I realize, oh, they took a crappy picture in an office of it, and it was all dark and you couldn't tell what the hell was going on. So unless you saw me in person, you didn't know what it was. So,
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I'm definitely not entirely bitter about that.
We actually don't usually do stuff for Halloween. We used to, actually, before we got into cosplay. That was like our one day of the year that we would just go nuts. Sometimes that meant just dressing as pirates and going out to Capitol Hill in Seattle and having fun. But we don't really, like, we're at the age now where, like, if you don't have kids doing and participating in the trick-or-treating thing.
Or friends that are like, okay, come to our place with a costume. And even that, it's not an elaborate thing. Unless they're costumes.
And all of our friends, they do have kids. So we just stay home, lock the door, turn off the lights, and play video games. That's what we do on Halloween. And eat our own candy, because we're grown-ups and we can buy as much candy as we want.
Live in an apartment, too, so there's not really anything to do with
that.
It's never knocked on our door, so...
No. So, no, it's funny. It's funny. We dress up in costume all the time, but we hardly ever do anything for Halloween. Yeah. I don't know. It might be fun to put on the joggers and just sort of meander around Capitol Hill in Seattle. That'd be kind of fun.
With glowing eyes.
Yeah, people would appreciate that, I think. Next question here actually comes from Lady Longshanks, my wife Brittany. She says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you hate international shipping?
Let's say it depends on which direction. Let's say 7.
Yeah.
So the problem with shipping is like shipping in Canada is trash too. So it's kind of a crapshoot for me either way. Flying something to Toronto is just as far as it is to like Texas. So it ends up, and unless it's bigger than an envelope, it ends up being like $15. Mm-hmm. I do my best to keep my shipping really cheap. Luckily, I'm shipping really small.
Yeah.
I can send stuff out for like $7. But like, it's not even shipping, getting stuff in that's the problem. It's customs. It's this box happens to have an arbitrary number that's above $100, so we're going to shake it a bit, and that's going to cost you $40. And then they move it away. I don't know. There's some law that's somebody is thinking about changing that would change the price from like $100 to $400 or something. So they would do away with a lot of that. Customs would start paying attention to small packages because really, governmental wise, they lose money for the amount of money that they spend to have people checking all these small useless packages. They only get like $10 each, and then FedEx takes $20. So it's all a crapshoot.
Yeah, it's all crazy. Bushang in the chat says, I'm in Australia. You should see them. Those shipping prices. Yeah. That's bonkers.
Is terrifying. Anytime anyone outside of North America wants something express, I'm just like, don't do it. It's not worth it. You're buying a $25 thing and you're going to pay $40 to ship it, and it's going to still arrive in 2 weeks. So,
yep, most of what we ship is books, and to ship one book anywhere in the States is like $6, which isn't that bad. But then to ship it overseas, and like As soon as it goes outside of America, including to Vancouver, which is, by the way, as close as Portland, it costs like $18 to ship a book that costs $30.
But the problem is it's got to fly all the way to Toronto first,
apparently,
to get to the country, and then fly all the way back to us.
So I'll just meet you at the border, and I'll just huck a book over the wall.
I know lots of people that have mailboxes on the other side that just drive down. I don't have my own car, so I haven't done that, but occasionally I'll be able to. I did my Creature Cast. I got someone to ship it to their box, and they just drove it over the border for me.
Yeah.
And that would have been insane to try and ship over, but it's free shipping in the US. I think that's the worst part about the general state of shipping anything in North America, is the fact that I have to deal with selling stuff to, I'm going to ruin all of my quote-unquote fans, but shipping stuff to like 13-year-olds that have only ever bought anything from Amazon.
Right. We are spoiled.
Yeah, that are getting into their first cosplay, and they're like, what do you mean it doesn't arrive tomorrow for free? I don't understand that. I'm like, no, I haven't even made it yet, and it's in another country.
So what we were able to do with our books anyway, because we get them printed by the 1,000, is we sent a lot of them to Amazon Canada and Amazon UK. So folks at home, if you're in Canada or if you're over in Europe land, you can order our books from them, get cheap or free shipping from Amazon, because those books are already there. Now, getting like 300 books of our books to the UK was a pain, but we only had to do that once. So that was cool. So there you go. The solution is volume. Yeah. Mail a bunch of stuff to Amazon. The downside of that is we had to pay for those books ahead of time. They're all printed. They're all paid for. I will never see them, and they're sitting in a warehouse somewhere. The upside is that I get a check from Amazon every couple weeks. They're like, hey, we sold some of your books. I'm like, yeah, you guys are awesome. Cool. I think we covered all the shipping woes on planet Earth. Yeah. Next one here comes from Cody. Is a pressure pot required for casting with non-clear resins, such as Smoothcast 300? So did you use a pressure pot for this little guy?
That one, I think I did.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily necessary. It very much depends on what it is that you're casting. If you're doing something, if you're making a mask, if you're making a huge mask, I guess you're slush casting, so that's useless. But so think of casting a like a ball versus a amulet, where it's got all these kind of intricate little tiny details and everything. Those two things are going to be very different. If you're doing the like staff header from Indiana Jones, it's got a whole bunch of little tiny detail. It's got the little wings that go up. You've got to engineer that in a certain way. Sometimes that means you might as well just put it in a pressure chamber to make it better. But there's usually a way to get around it. You can use the baby powder in the mold. If you're cold casting it, that kind of does the same thing. As long as you have big vents, then big bubbles will get out of the way. Using a slower resin will help. There's a lot of ways you can get around not using a pressure chamber if you don't happen to have one. But if you have the room for it, might as well get one. I was able to buy one for like $40 off.
Oh, nice.
Off of what was it, Craigslist? But I had to do some modifications to it. It's a big paint pot. So the guy had instead of all the closing valves and everything, he had hoses coming off it, so he could HP, LV stuff with that. And I just bought those off him for super cheap and changed the valve so that I could close it off and actually pressurize it. I think the most expensive thing out of that part would be the actual pump. because you need a kind of hefty one to be able to do it fast enough and strong enough. But like it's not the price isn't that bad. It's really, do you have the space to keep all this crap? And
right.
Personally, I don't. I just happen to have a hack space I can go stick it in and not worry about it.
We had one like that, a modified paint one, and that worked for a while, although it was a little leaky. So we upgraded to a super nice one. But
I found our mine's a little bit leaky. Over like an hour and a half, you'll lose maybe a third of the air.
Yeah.
But I find if you leave the valve to the pump open, that's a bigger reservoir, and it takes longer for the air to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So it just stays better. I don't know. But for me, it's fine for now.
Oh, yeah. What I've found since getting a pressure pot is I got it so that I could cast stuff clear without any bubbles in it. But now that I have it, I just pressure cast everything, because then it comes out perfect. So, yeah. Get it if you need it for clear stuff. If not, what you'll end up seeing is like two tiny bubbles showing up at the top of your pour, where or things can rest against the top of the mold if you have like a 2-part mold. And those are, you got to just kind of fill those in with a filler, like spot putty or something, which is a pain. If you use a pressure pot, that goes away. So that's nice. And it just makes all your castings come out perfectly. So there you go. Thanks, Cody. Good question. I always enjoy talking about pressure pots. Next one here comes to us from our friend Deathbright. Do you guys like 3D sculpting for a 3D print or sculpting by hand? How do you decide which method to use? I don't do much hand sculpting with clay, but I do plenty of, I guess you would call sculpting with like sheets of wood and plastic. And I like that a lot. But I also really like making my Ultimaker do a lot of the work because it's really good at it. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm not a physical sculptor. I could theoretically be okay, but like the last thing I sculpted was in early college, and anytime I think about it, I'm like, that looked cool in the end, but was very round and splotchy, and it's just not the way I would want stuff now. And like, it really depends on what it is you're trying to make. If you're trying to make a very organic shape, then yeah, you can do it out of clay and sand it and fill it and grind it and whatever. But for the stuff like my gems, they're supposed to have really hard edges on them, or a gun or something like that. You can
like this guy, all 3D modeled.
That and
perfectly symmetrical because the 3D model.
Yeah, because computers.
Yay.
Yeah, for something like that, I would just 3D print it. But I'm also, like you, was trained in 3D.
Right,
so.
Yeah. What I found is a lot of people who like creature stuff tend to go with more clay sculpting, more organic things. But then again, there are lots of people doing more and more ZBrush type stuff. Now, that's something I'm completely unfamiliar with. I like space guns. Someone real quick in the chat was curious about the difference between a pressure pot and a vacuum chamber. Generally, you get a vacuum chamber to pull bubbles out of silicone before pouring it to make a mold. And then a pressure pot is used once you have the mold made. You put the mold in the pressure pot, you fill it with resin, you hit it with an air compressor so it fills it with pressure, and then the liquid resin that your part will be made out of, if there are any bubbles in it, they get compressed really tiny, and then it comes out looking super perfect. So that generally you have both of those. You use the vacuum chamber to make your silicone molds perfect, and then you have the pressure pot to make your castings out of that mold perfect. I have one of each, and it's awesome. Yeah.
One explodes, one implodes.
Yes, that's right. Hopefully neither one does either of those things.
Yeah.
Cool. And then what else is there? Good. We're all good. All caught up. Great. Good question, Deathbright. Excited to see what you're working on next. Next one here comes from Go Dogs Creations. For making a mold for a resin cast, what kind of rubber is best and most cost effective? Also, when trimming up flashing, is there a simple fix If you sand off too much in an area or accidentally scratch an area that you need to be smooth. Do you have a favorite silicone? I have my favorite. I'm curious what yours is.
I've been using Moldstar 30, I think.
You like your platinums? Big fan of the platinums?
I do. For the gems, I have to do so many of them. Mm-hmm. I'd rather spend a little bit more and have something that's going to last a little bit longer.
How many castings can you get out of one mold of those gems?
I don't count it, but I feel like
50?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
But well, best silicone for which?
It depends. So they weren't really specific. Yeah. As far as cost effectiveness goes, all silicone is pretty expensive. Yeah. It's not that bad if you're making, like, one of your gem molds probably isn't very big, right?
Yeah.
That's not too bad. If you're making a whole helmet, that's a different story.
Yeah.
I like mold max 30. It's the shore hardness of 30. What's the word? Tin cure silicone. I like it because it's very reliable. It won't. I've never had curing inhibition issues with it.
Everyone else is terrified of that. I've never had that either. The only thing that I'll occasionally have is if you've got too much super glue that's uncured, that'll inhibit it, but only when it's touching it. So like the very base of the thing. Yeah. But I've never had an entire thing of silicone just not cure on me. Yeah. Without me clearly not mixing A and B.
I have. Although I will say I've never used Moldstar 30. I used Moldstar 15, and that I had a bunch of issues with that.
Yeah.
So I just, the pink stuff, the pink goo, I just get that. I don't do it. Actually, don't do a lot of mold making these days. I've made a bunch in the past, but I don't do a lot of specialty mold making. If you're doing like a 1-part mold that doesn't have a ton of like undercuts or anything, then just a normal tin cure silicone will be just fine.
I buy it in bulk, so I just get what I know is going to work. I went with the 30. Probably you did the same thing. Went with the 30 so that when I do a 2-part mold, it's just more rigid, so that it doesn't squish as much.
Yeah, the 15 that I use, when you press it together, if you clamp it too much, it'll start bowing and change the shape of your casting.
I bought dragon skin at some point. I don't even remember why anymore, but I tried to use that for a 2-part mold, and I was like, this is the worst idea. It's super squishy. It just went, ugh.
So one thing you can do is, let's say you're doing a brush up mold and it's got a lot of detail and maybe some little underhangs. You put your Moldstar 15 on that first layer, that catches all the detail. Then your subsequent layers are Moldstar 30. So the mold is actually 2 different durometers. It's a more rigid mold, but the details have a nice flexible bit of silicone so that it can release easily. But we're diving deep into some crazy mold making territory. GoDog Creations is curious. What do you do if you sand off too much of your flashing? What do you do? Although not that you've ever done that before, I'm sure.
It's bad. I don't know. It depends. I suppose I usually just ignore it. Hopefully you've put your seam lines in a spot that doesn't matter that much. But like if you've got something that is going to have a seam straight down the center, fill in sand, a lot of spot putty.
Yep. If it's really bad, then Bondo.
Yeah. I kind of assume that anything that is like if you get a kit from somebody, you're not expecting to be able to glue it together and be done and just be it's perfect and now I can paint it. You're always going to have to do some kind of fiddling with it. I find I get the problem where my seams will misalign just ever so much, so you end up getting this line of like a ditch right beside it. That always, that's the same kind of issue where you just have to fill it and sand it and get it back smooth.
There you go. Thanks for the question, Go Dogs Creation. Next one here, it's from our buddy Sam. Also curious about Destiny factions. He says, which Destiny faction is the best and why is it Future War Cult?
It's clearly. Y'all are wrong. I never any of the factions.
No.
Because they're all boring.
I did Dead Orbit because their armor looked the coolest. I will say, let me just point out real quick that I'm playing a Titan because Titans are the best, and so far I have not been overly impressed with the aesthetics of the Titan armor. The shoulders are a little too World of Warcraft for me so far.
Yeah, getting a little big.
And the one with the purple glowing horns off of it was just too much.
I haven't picked up Destiny 2. I just don't have the time to worry about the MMO aspect of it. But more of my friends have it now than they did Destiny 1, and I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I'm still thinking about it.
All right.
I might still pick it up. But last time I ended up only coming back for Iron Banner, and every time I did, everybody was a higher level than me, and I would just be behind on everything, and I never got to do any of the raids. So I don't know.
Little Sparks in the chat says, giant Warcraft shoulders are my lifeblood. That totally makes sense. She's made a couple of World of Warcraft costumes. Thank you, Sam, for stirring up some controversy. Next one comes from Otaku Gamers Portal. I've been working on the Cyber Ninja Hanzo bow from Overwatch. I printed most of it, and I want to mold and cast it. The problem is the print doesn't have a smooth surface. How can I mold the bow if the surface has printer patterns and is porous? Oh my goodness. This is a great example for Mike here to explain how he takes a 3D printed gem and prepares it for molding.
So first, you can mold it. There's nothing wrong with molding a straight up 3D print. Even if you end up getting silicone inside print, that'll tear off.
Oh yeah.
No, you won't even use it. It'll just, it doesn't matter. But if you want to make it smooth, sand it, fill it, sand it, fill it, sand it, fill it, sand it, fill it, sand it, fill it.
Yep.
That's about it. Yeah.
So this guy here, I'm not going to mold it, but this was an ABS print, and before it came off the printer, the layer was like 0.15 millimeters, and I sanded it, and I love sanding ABS so much more than PLA. And then this is, after sanding it down to a 220, I hit it with a filler primer. And that's where it is right now, and you can hardly see any lines left. And I've started sanding it again to get it nice and smooth. That should be enough. We'll see. I will sand it one more time and then hit it with the normal primer. And then if I can see any more layer lines, I'll either do more filling or more sanding, depending on how egregious it is.
Or give up.
Or just give up. I probably won't give up. I will probably be in my shop until midnight tonight sanding this thing. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard to get away with not sanding. Even if you use something like XTC 3D, which I'm using on my Tank Trooper helmet, you still have to end up sanding that to get it to the smooth finish that you like. Whether you want that to be just a nice smooth finish with no lines on it, or if you want it to be like a high gloss, then you're going to have to sand it a bunch. You could wet sand it. You can bring it up to a 2000 grit and go through all the polishing steps if you want. But it's hard.
Do not have patience for that.
No. It's hard to get away with not sanding. That's really all I'm trying to say.
The problem I have with like super shiny sanding stuff is doing that on something you're going to mold is kind of useless, because the second you try to mold it, if you've got a fingerprint in that silicone, like, you can make a perfect mold, but if you poke your finger into it and then you try to cast it, now that's got a fingerprint in it.
Yeah.
And then you end up sanding it again. And if it's something that's a two-part mold, then you've already got mold seams that you have to worry about. So I would also suggest, if you're only making one of them and you want to get it into a material that is lighter, more rigid, that is just better, you want to cast it into something else, maybe do some of the sanding after you've casted it.
Sure, yeah. If you only need one or two copies. If you're planning on casting dozens of those things, though, get it as smooth as possible for you before you sand it.
Make the master as good as it can first.
Yep.
And
also, if you're just getting into this, maybe practice on something smaller than Hanzo's bow. Just start small, work your way up.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Thank you, Otaku Gamers Portal. And have fun sanding. Next one comes to us. Again, Lady Longshanks, my wife, wants to know what it's like working in a shared hackerspace. We work out of our basement. We try not to leave our house as much as possible. Although, quick story, yesterday we were out for a walk. Not 2 blocks from us, on our walk, we walked past the dude's house, looked up the driveway, and he had a garage full of astromech droids, like full-size R2-D2. I was like, holy crap. I stopped and pointed at him. I was like, you have astromech droids. He's like, you want to see my droids? I was like, yes, I do. I ran up his driveway, and it's like, how long have you been 2 blocks from my house?
How did you leave? How did you ever get out of there? I would never have...
I don't know. Well, we're friends on Facebook now, and we're going to hang out. So sometimes it pays to leave your basement and make friends. So what's it like working in a shared space?
Logistically, it helps. I only pay 60 Canadian a month to be a member. And that gets me... For our specific one, that gets me key holder access 24/7 whenever I want.
Cool.
And that means that I can use the laser, the 3D printers, the lathe. They've got mills that I don't know how to use.
Nice.
A whole bunch of stuff. Socially, it's good because you get to learn a lot of cool stuff from cool people. There's always somebody there that knows how to do something that you don't. I definitely recommend Hackspaces, especially if you happen to be in Vancouver. Come down to the Vancouver Hackspace. It's
cool.
Awesome. The downsides are, it is not your space. As much as I have spread my rat's nest out, I am not supposed to. I know very well that I'm taking up far more room than I should. And I think the only reason why people there allow me to do the amount of nonsense that I do is because I'm a decent human being and I'm okay with cleaning up stuff and I'm helpful to other people and so on and so on. But I know that I'm not paying anything extra from any other key holder. I have no claim on my space to be any more important than anyone else. I know that if somebody needs a spot, I should move my things. Mm-hmm. But occasionally I also get at odds with people in the sense that, like, if I've got a spot that has all of the things that I'm using to do all the stuff that I do, I think part of my problem is I have so many goddamn projects, and each project needs a new pile of stuff to go toward. So it ends up being 8 piles of stuff that are for 8 different projects. I don't know. But you get into problems where someone will try to clean, and then they'll clean up a piece of your project and store it somewhere that makes no sense to you, but made sense to them, and then you're running around for 2 months trying to find that one piece of that project that you finally got a chance to work on. Or people just borrow little bits. They think, oh, this super glue, I'll use this super glue, and then they'll break the tip off of it, and it'll be useless because it can't close anymore. It's small things of, like, think of every high school, there's always that one guy that does that one thing you hate. If you're in a space with 60 other people regularly, one of them is going to do something to annoy you.
Right.
So you're always going to have to worry about that, but...
do you just put your name on all your things?
I try.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't help. But yeah, the super glue annoyed me. I have a picture of my bottle of super glue with the top torn off of it with a note that I'd written on the thing saying, this has my name on it. This is not how you should treat anyone's super glue, let alone another member's.
Right.
Like if it was the Space's super glue, I would have been pissed too.
Right. But also it was yours.
Yeah, it also has my name on it. There's no excuse.
All right. Well, it sounds like the good outweighs the frustration.
Yeah, it definitely, and we're looking at newer spaces as well that will allow members to purchase or to rent space in the space or adjacent to, and that'll allow me to have my own lockable space as
cool.
well as have access to the hack space quite easily.
Awesome.
And that is kind of the best of both.
Next question is from Deruso Designs. Curious if either of us have stickers and where we would recommend getting them. If you want to get stickers printed, we've been using Stickermule. As far as Punished Prop stickers, we are all out. I just made a note to order more. Order more stickers.
I've been using RedBubble.
Yes.
They're pretty good. They're really good for low runs of stickers. If you want one sticker, they'll make one sticker.
Cool.
They just print it on demand, and it's a really good price. It's maybe like $2.50 or something for a really nice vinyl sticker. But the problem I have with them is their sizes are really big. I tend to give them a file with two images on it at once, so that you end up with 2 stickers from one sale. But they end up having a white border around them. I have them right beside me. Whoop. So these all have a white border. They just kind of, their program will cut out a border for you.
Oh.
So you end up with stuff like this.
Okay.
Which isn't bad, but depending on the design, you can tell that mine, because I have the cream border, it kind of gets lost. But I don't know. And some people really like the flush to the edge of the art look.
Yeah.
But like for them, they don't do any quality check over it, so they can't do that, because if you give it 50,000 dots, then they've got a machine that's full of garbage. So.
Now, if people want to get that sticker from you, are those included in orders, or can you buy stickers by themselves?
No, I've been lazy and I haven't put them online yet, but they'll be cheap.
All right, cool. You also have
RedBubble.
Oh yeah, you got a shirt. I've got your Etsy store up, and you got little Rocketman pins, laser cut pins.
Yeah, I've been doing those. Those all lasered on the laser at the Vancouver Hex.
Excellent. That's awfully handy. Cool. Same person has a question. If either of us is going to TwitchCon, and will you sign a post-process 3D print of mine? I will be there, and I will sign whatever you put in front of me. That's the Bill Duran guarantee.
The dangerous guarantee.
You won't be at TwitchCon, correct? No. Okay. Well,
anything that requires flying is far too expensive.
Okay.
We will probably be at Emerald City though.
Yeah. Awesome.
Tickets on sale soon. And Emerald City and PAX are just generally far better conventions than anything that is in Canada.
They're pretty awesome.
They're
kind of know what we're doing up here.
All the Canadian cons, all the big Canadian cons are run by the same company, and they're all terrible.
Oh, that's too bad.
They're just a big haul of things to sell to you and maybe a few panels. Yeah, that's what.
And then one more quick question from Deroso Designs. Do you know Jatman? I don't know who that person is. Okay. Good talk. Thanks for the questions. Next one comes to us from Double Bomb. What is a good laser wattage to get started with? The eventual plan is to get something large down the line, but something to do small stuff like decals and thin acrylics would be a great start. Do you have laser opinions?
I have no clue what the wattage means on lasers.
Mm-hmm.
I use the one that we have, but I feel like the wattage is not necessarily a mark of a good laser. I know that ours does not do metal, but I've heard that it's not a wattage issue as much as a frequency issue. That it just doesn't have the right frequency of light to be able to do anything to metal. But I don't think that it's a straight up more wattage, more power. But I don't know what necessarily that means. I think that anything cheap is going to be good enough for you.
We've got a 5th gen hobby laser from Full Spectrum. It's a 45-watt laser, and it can cut through most things that are about 1/4 of an inch thick. Not metal, but your acrylic plastics, your styrene plastics, most woods. It'll cut through no problem. 1/4 of an inch thick, right? So that's.
And I thought that might not even be a power issue for thicker things. It's more of a focus issue.
Yeah, and I think also like a 90-watt laser, like if you double that, in general, those are meant to be able to cut through things that are up to a 1/2 inch thick. But I don't know that much about it. I just know that mine is 45 watts, and it'll cut through 1/4 inch, and that does just about everything I need it to do.
Yeah.
As far as price and what you get is kind of what you pay for. There are options to build your own, to get overseas laser cutters. I got mine from Full Spectrum. I bought it. They're in Las Vegas. I paid for the warranty on it because if anything goes wrong with that laser, I just send it to them. They fix it. They send it back. And it's not terrible to send it because it's going to Nevada and not Shenzhen. So,
yeah.
But I paid more for that because I didn't want to have to dink around with it, which is great because I did have a problem with it and I sent it back and they fixed it, no problem. So, as far as other options are, you'll have to shop around and see what's available. But 45 watts should be more than you need, I think. Imagination to Form says 1.21 gigawatts. That would be far too much. That's too many watts.
Then you go back in time.
Yes, unless you're trying to travel through time. Cool. That's a good amount of laser talk here. Let's grab another one. We've got a visual aid. Let me see if I can bring this up here real quick. All right. Belthazor says, what material would you make thin knives like Drax the Destroyer's knives? And I have a visual aid. So it's Drax knives from Guardians of the Galaxy. Curious about what you would use to make the blades out of. They're fairly thin. There are many, many options, of course. What comes to mind for you, Mike?
I would say Delrin, foam PVC, any of the like relatively rigid but thick plastic card stuff.
Like 1/4. These look like they might be about 1/4 inch thick. So like 1/4 inch foam PVC Sintra.
3 millimeter sheets of foam PVC.
Yeah.
Relatively easy, I think, and then double it up. And whatever glue you use, it's just going to keep it more rigid.
Yep.
Yeah. Belt sander, fill and sand.
For sure. I did a blade like that. This was a long time ago. My Dragon Age costume, I had the staff with the blade on the end of it, and it's just a 1/4 inch thick sheet of Sintra, of your foam PVC board. I get that from Tap Plastics here in Seattle, but Sintra.com, and if you just look up foam PVC board, that'll do you. Styrene plastic can work. You could stack a bunch of layers of sign material, like for sale signs are made out of. They're probably like 1 or 2 millimeters thick. Those are made of styrene. You could
end up being about 50% glue at that point. But
sure, but
it would do it, yeah.
But you could get everything you need right at Home Depot or the whatever hardware store is near you. Yeah. What's cool is Drax daggers have some details carved into it, so you might take your outer layer of thin plastic and carve those details in and then glue it down. You've got options. But yeah, for sure, some plastic. There you go. The answer is plastic. Thanks for the question, Belfazor. Next one here comes from Chris. What materials do you like working with the least? What is your least favorite material?
Hair.
Hair?
100% right now, hair.
How often does that come up?
Apparently it does when you decide to make dwarfs.
Oh, yeah.
So, I tried to make Torbjorn's beard, and I'm probably going to actually change it to the way your brother did it, where it was just foam.
Yeah.
But I had 2 big chunks of foam as like internal structure, and I tried to lay the hair on top of it, and it ended up being like just my own personal hell of trying to drape this hair on top of it while also trying to hold it on this mannequin head, while also trying to move the other piece of beard out of the way, while also trying to spray it and get it to stick, while also trying to get it to not look like it's been sprayed and glued, and trying to not tangle everything. And God, it was a bad couple days. It's just in a tangled mess in the corner of the hack space right now, waiting to be like cut up and turned into something else. So I feel bad that I ruined so much Arta Wake's hair, but it did not do what I wanted it to do. There's far more that I need to learn in that before I could do that again. It was terrible.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Just fabric in general. Anytime I try and coax the sewing machine into doing what I need it to do, ends in misery and swear words.
Yeah, it's just a big ball of thread underneath it. You're like, oh, this is going well, and then you flip it over, and you're like, what? God damn it!
I've been lulled into a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Everything's fantastic. I'm so good at sewing. And then underneath, and then it gets caught a little bit, and the cloth can't come out.
Yeah.
Or go in. It's just there. So yeah.
Hard materials. I don't know what would be the worst one.
Any rigid material that I can sand, no problem. Yeah. I can just sand it until it looks right. It's not the case with fabric. True story, every shred of cloth on my Draugr costume is hot glued on. There is not a single thread in that costume. Yeah. Oh, Brittany is in the chat. She says the cats get scared when Bill uses the sewing machine. It's true. I tend to swear a lot. All right. Thank you, Chris, for the question. Last one. Last one comes from Britt. She's curious. Mike, is your hack space area covered in glitter powders? Currently.
I'd like to say no. I'm usually pretty good about it. I'm very gentle when I do any of the glitter stuff. But yes. Occasionally I'll look at a mold and be like, why the fuck? What is glittering in this? Really, the entire hack space is full of dust.
Yeah.
A while ago, they actually put up like a big plastic vapor barrier around the entire woodshop area.
Oh, cool.
To try and contain it a little bit. It's made it much better, but it still gets out occasionally. Yeah, because there's just so much dust.
There you go. We have many. I just swept and vacuumed the shop. It hasn't been touched since before DragonCon, so it was kind of atrocious.
Yeah.
But it is now clean. I just started sanding this thing today, and I actually feel bad about making more dust. I really ought to make myself a downdraft table at some point.
I find these don't work great. You need a lot of suction for that to do much.
I have a very large dust collector that I could employ. Suction is not my issue.
Someone built one with at the space with a shop vac.
Yeah,
it really did nothing.
Yeah,
it was just a table that had noise.
Just a noisy table.
Yeah.
I think that's the last question. Yes, it is. Thanks, Britt, for wrangling all of those for us. Thank you, everyone in the chat, you wonderful Prop Tarts, for bringing your awesome questions. And, of course, thanks, Mike, for joining us today on Prop Live. The best place people can go to check out what you're working on, if you just go to rocketmanprops.com, that sends everyone to your Etsy store.
Yep.
Which is an awesome place. I'm showing it off again right now. If you're looking for gems, if you're looking for laser cut goodies, that's the place for it. So head on over there right now and buy some stuff from Mike, because it's pretty fantastic stuff. Tell me, Mike, do you take all your photos? Because these are great.
I do. They're all on my cell phone, and every single one is completely a nightmare to try and edit. The lighting will always change, and some of the gems are just impossible to take a decent picture of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you pulled it off.
Thank you.
Pulled it off.
Long history of taking a picture of something on white and then just editing out the background.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you again so much for hanging out with us last hour. Everyone at home, you guys are great. Been keeping an eye on you in the chat. You guys are fantastic. That's all we have for you guys this week. We will be continuing work on all our fun projects, including this Destiny Airsoft gun mod. There'll be a couple of videos on that. Brittany's got her SweepyBot videos coming out, so look forward to those. And that's it. We're all done for today, and we'll see you guys next week for another exciting edition of Prop Live Q&A. Yeah.